When I picked up Omar Al-Duri's best-selling book, Reset, 5 Dominos That Will Change Your Life, I thought I knew what I was going to find. A framework, strategies, practical tools for performance, well-being, resilience, and personal growth. And they were all there, but as I was reading, I found myself becoming more interested in something else. Not the framework itself, but the person behind it. Every now and then, between the lessons and the practical advice, there were moments that I felt deeply the human side of the author, reflections, experiences, lessons that felt lived rather than learned. And I caught myself wondering, is every reset a form of healing? And if it is, can we truly reset our lives without first being completely honest with ourselves? The more I read, the more I become aware about the journey behind the lessons. My guest today is Omar Al-Duri. Many of you may know him through the Coach's Corner, his work on Dubai Eye, sports broadcasting, corporate speaking engagements, well-being advocacy, and more recently, his best-selling book, in 2019, recent still, Reset, 5 Dominos That Will Change Your Life. For nearly 2 decades, Omar has helped individuals, athletes, and organizations better understand the connection between performance, well-being, resilience, and personal growth. But today, I'm interested in something different. Not only what Omar teaches, but what Omar is, the experience that shaped his book, his personality, his perspective, and perhaps even the energy he brings into the world. The parts of the story that don't always appear on the stage, behind the microphone, or between the pages of a book. And that's what I'd love to explore today. Omar, welcome to Let's Get Real to Heal.
Thank you so much. What an intro.
Really?
I mean, you do things.
I was up till 12:30 last night, as I just told you. Every word I've picked, because honestly, I wanted to give this experience the right value, because the way we connected was also kind of like not coincidental. I would say that our common friend, Benoit, so I'm mentioning him today because we've spoken about him as well a lot. I mean, the leader in the ice bath industry and the breathwork modalities, I would say. I've met Benoit a long time back, but we were sitting on a project trying to think of a retreat we could plan together. And then the book, your book, and I say my book now because it has been like really worked on quite well. So the book was on the table and I took it by mistake. And I ended up calling Benoit and telling him, listen, I think this book called me, so I'll keep it. I never realized that the author of the book lives in the UAE. I never got to know who was it a bestseller or anything. And I think that was the best thing I've had the chance to experience. And this is why today I would say that we would talk about the 5 Dominos, etc., about the food, about the exercise, about who you are is something I'm intrigued to know, because I've felt that I got to know you before meeting you, and that is a proof of the authenticity and the vulnerability that you've adopted to write this book. And I think now that I know it's a bestseller, it's not a surprise.
Thank you.
So tell me, Omar, what brought this book to life?
So before I start telling you that, can you just please show the preparation that she has done? I've sat on many podcasts about Reset. I have never, and I have to give her her flowers, okay? I have never seen anyone highlight and yellow notes and have paper as well,
exactly,
like you. So again, I'm humbled by your preparation.
I'm really glad. It gave me, as I just told you, the time to also sit, recover, as in recovery is part of your Dominos. And I think it also opened my personal wounds, and it gave me time to focus on gratitude as well, which will come during our conversation. But I feel that this book has come to life at a very specific stage of your life. What made you write that book?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I come from an educational family, and the pressure is very high. So already when you have figures like my grandfather and my father later on, it's such a high bar. So once I stopped focusing on the greatness that they have, and I started realizing the vulnerability and the mistakes that I'm making and the reasons why I'm making them, I then felt like it was 20 years of mistakes and learnings simplified. And the objective was there might be someone else out there that's feeling the same way. And I think that's how the idea came about. It takes a lot out of you. As you know, you've also written a book. It takes a lot out of you. And I rewrote it 4 times. So I never really was content with it until I released it. And once I released it, then I released a part of myself where you then can be very easily exposed, because the person is not just reading facts and figures, they're reading emotions and feelings. And that's how I think the book started. And just asking myself why and figuring out what my purpose was, which now I can tell you, but maybe at the time of writing the book, I was still trying to figure it out. And I think overall with all these things, I thought, let me do it now, because I don't think I'll do it again. And I don't think there's ever a right time to start. And it was just
Never a
then.
right time to start.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I think people do wait for the right time.
Yeah.
And I think if we would give one advice, looking at whatever we try to do in our businesses and helping others, etc., is there is never a right time for anything. But at the same time, you speak about your mom indirectly quite a few times, and the book is dedicated to your wife and your mom. And coincidentally, this morning I got really very emotional because I was also listening to, I don't know if you know him, Dr. Khalid Ghattas.
Yes.
And on his reel, coincidentally, he was speaking about moms, but in a different way. He was saying that he met someone at a conference, probably in Egypt, if I'm not mistaken. And she spoke about her experience of losing her mom. And the way she expressed it was, my mom taught me everything I know, except how to live without her. And I think this did really touch me. Looking at 2 perspectives. One, the question that comes to my mind, who is your mom? Because to be who you are today, that means you have an amazing mom. And this is why I would say we don't express it enough, unfortunately. So how would you describe your mom?
Just everything, I think. I think any space that needs to be filled. I think that's the best way of expressing it. I think, wow, what a question. I think what moms do and how they feel and act on the spot and teach you and nurture you and do all these things, we don't value and appreciate as much until we either start to step into that world or we start to see them not deteriorate, because that's not a nice word, but are uncharacteristic like and don't start to act like the way they normally act. And only then, when you become the guardian and they become the child, do you then understand how valuable time is with them versus how precious the moments that you share with them allow you to be the person you are today. And so for me, rather than looking at it that my father wasn't involved, I looked at it as in my mom was. And so, that's it's so hard to put into words, because no matter how much I try to articulate that, it doesn't do her justice.
It doesn't do them justice, for sure. I think we're blessed. And I'm that's why while I was driving today, I was like, maybe I've never taken the chance, but I would love today to tell my mom, and I know she will watch this episode first, because there is no episode she doesn't watch from beginning till end, to check the translation to Arabic and to pick up mistakes or things that I need to align. And I realized today, and if this book is about change and reset, I would like to reset today. And I would like to tell my mom, I owe you who I am today. And I owe you the best education you've provided me, being a teacher. And I owe you the belief in who I am, because I wouldn't be sitting here and doing what I'm doing if I didn't have your support. So I'm blessed for sure. And I think, how many times do we forget to say things? I live with my mom, but I don't stop and tell her that. So looking at how you wrote the book genuinely, no, I got emotional. Let me reset. Reset is the word for today. But you started your book with a statement. You wrote that the obsession of being the perfect guardian, father figure, or coach comes through the fact that I didn't have the privilege of having my father around throughout my childhood. And that made me ask myself a question. Life lessons, learnings, missions, do they come from what we miss growing up rather than what we have? Like we spoke about our moms, right? But does it come from what we miss?
That's a great question. I think we value more the things we don't achieve to allow us to reset, re-energize, and go again.
Amazing.
I think the fact that our learnings come from what we don't have, because that period, that sensitive period, that what have I lost out on? What have I missed out on? How can I do it better? It starts to get your brain ticking in such a way that it makes it sweeter if you touch it, if you feel it, if you hear it, if you breathe it. And I think with reset, maybe when I was younger, I probably didn't see it like that, because I thought, why? Why is that person taking his kid to the school, taking him to football, taking him to the cinema, or even just to the grocery store? And then when you end up valuing it, I have a relationship with my father today. And I have it because I went through something recently, and it made me think to myself, if that was him in the ICU and had 24 hours to live, would I feel the same? And so all these years of maybe not resenting him, but accepting who he is without making an effort to step closer, despite knowing that he might want me to come closer, but he's not going to take that step. Now I have one with him. And the reason why I have one with him is because I understood what it feels like not to have him. So that was my learning.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you're lucky, because you have had the chance to. You know how many clients come, and when they have this realization, it's too late.
Yeah.
And we have to simulate that through hypnosis to make them find the peace they are seeking.
Yeah.
So it is true that even sometimes in love and relationship, we give what we missed as children. I've seen also that pattern. Like if your father did not give you enough gifts, then you start over-giving gifts, and that becomes your love language. So it is really true that a part of who we are is based on what we have missed at a certain point in life. So when you speak about your experience, even as in coaching, because you said that it is challenging for you to try to take that role of fathering, whether it is through coaching or through what you do. How much do you think that you've been chasing a role to play? Because you speak about escapism when you speak about life coaching or coaching even performance coaching. So what were you escaping deep down through the coaching, and were you trying to chase a role that you missed in your life?
I think naturally what I didn't realize is it's part of my DNA. So when I realized what my why is to elevate and empower. And it gave me the most. Maybe because I didn't have it at times, I felt was critical in development, in growth. And so my style of coaching, whether it was individuals or whether it was in team sports, was to see what Joelle has and bring that to light, because she already has it. It wasn't for me to go search for it. And straight away, I can pick up that energy and I can think, love that. And I will say it. I'll say, listen, that preparation, that conversation outside, the way you addressed me, the notes, the fact you went out of your way to reach out, that's a skill in itself. Now, the next person or the person here or there, I'd say, see what she does there? That's natural.
Yeah, you're right. There is a part, I think, of a natural effort that comes along. And I think this is how we discover our life mission and who we are meant
Yeah.
to be and what message do we carry.
Yeah.
And from here, I would say we can speak about another aspect that you highlight in your book, which is the mental aspect of it. So when you coach athletes, when you coach, even teams, how much do you focus on their mental ability and their mental blockages as well? And how much can their childhood, their relationship with their parents, etc., can help in boosting their performance or in helping them achieve their goals?
That's another good question. I think understanding the person first before the athlete is the first thing. Asking questions, listening to a lot of things, and asking with intent, looking the person in the eye when you speak to them. They can feel your presence, that you care, the investment in the conversation, let alone the person, already goes away when they can think, he didn't have to ask that, or she didn't have to ask that. So that's the first thing. Then it's understanding their roots, their triggers, their glimmers, everything that kind of shapes them as they are, without being quick to say, that's not going to work for me. Because I think that's what happens to us when we were younger. No, that's not good enough. No, you're from there. No, you can't do this. No, actually, you should stick to that. If you don't do this, you won't be successful. If you're not successful, you won't feel that way. But a lot of the times what we feel is, and I'm sure you could relate to this as well, we climb up this ladder and we think when we get to the top, we're going to be happy. But along the ways, there's sacrifices. And when you make those sacrifices, sometimes you realize the ladder's on the wrong wall.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right? So you've got to take the ladder now, be honest with yourself and say, okay, I got that wrong. I thought I was going to be happy at the end of that ladder. And then now you find things that you love doing, the way that you speak about healing, the way you heal people, the way you make people feel better. Now that's your wall. Because at every step of the way, you can sort of enjoy the moments and you can say, that was great. That person felt amazing.
The journey.
The journey, right? But it's only until you find your wall.
So when you work with athletes and teams who want to perform and achieve and wherever, I think by the time they reach the top, they would have released lots of their own limitations. So I would say that the journey itself is a healing process for them. How many times have you seen athletes transforming before they've reached their goals?
A lot of the times, but the moment you start to really understand that coaching and being an athlete are two separate things, is that an athlete has the room to be selfish and a coach has the room to be selfless. So the idea is, as soon as you don't expect the athlete to show appreciation for your coaching, is because they haven't got to the top yet. And then when they do, they kind of look back and say, I may have not agreed with him or her, but I actually thought that was so vital in my journey as an athlete. And in the beginning of a coaching career, you probably think, well, why aren't they grateful? Or why can't they see that I'm doing this for them, not for me? But that thought process in itself is sort of challenging because you're waiting for the validation of your work. The moment you start to do things like wholeheartedly, and whether they see it or not, you've stuck to your principles and you haven't compromised.
Yeah.
Later on, they then come back and say, that was crucial, because then they've experienced other coaches, they've experienced other feelings. Maybe someone wasn't showing the sense of empathy that I was, or vice versa, and they might appreciate that person more. It's all part of understanding how much you can give, when you can give, and not necessarily receiving straight away.
So here we're speaking again about compassion, about empathy. And in the book, at some point, you speak about the struggles that made you more compassionate and opened the door to empathy. So when you speak about these struggles and this period, is it a certain period in your life, or it's different struggles at different point of life?
I think it's different moments. I think it's key moments. Every time you go through something tough, you feel that is the toughest moment. And that's the toughest struggle. But then what happens is you endure. And then something else happens that's very unfortunate or challenging. And then you think, God, how am I going to get out of this one? And then, so the key moments throughout, whether it was a car accident, whether it was losing people in your life, whether it was work, or even ending up in hospital, or going through a certain type of pain, or seeing someone else suffer and you can't help. These are all moments that you kind of feel at that point are the toughest. And then you realize, well, I now can be a parent. I now can be a friend, a brother, a son, a husband, because I've felt that. And now when that person feels that, naturally, of course, you're going to unconditionally love that person. So you're going to be like, okay, you listen to what they have to say, and then it kind of reflects with what you felt. And then you let them live and breathe out their feeling without trying to nurture that. And then you can relate to it. So people who read or listen can say, I love that. I feel the same way. And that's where the connection happens.
That's so true. The connection happens when two people, or when in a room we can feel the authenticity, and when there is safety to open up and be vulnerable. And I would say, even through the book, you speak about near-death experience or an accident that kind of transformed you and changed you. So on those lines, because I've seen on Instagram a few reels of you trying to walk, etc. So what was that experience, and what did it teach you?
To be grateful, because maybe one of the first reels might have been after I was driving to LA, and I had a collision with two cars, and I woke up
It's an accident.
in
It's
the
a car
car.
accident.
Luckily, the engine was not at the front; it was behind me. So, because I went underneath the car and got hit, but all these things at the time, especially at that age, you kind of think, why is this happening?
Oh, wow.
And then I've been given another opportunity. And when you get into a collision with two other cars, the first thing that I thought of is, are they okay? Has someone died? Am I responsible?
Yeah.
Now you're bruised and you're battered and concussion and everything, but you're not thinking, well, I'm not thinking of that. And I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't be there thinking of, where's everyone else?
Yeah.
So that's the first one. The second one was recently, actually, and that was after Reset, is I ruptured my Achilles playing sports. And you and I spoke off camera about the importance of the role it plays in our life.
Correct.
I ruptured my Achilles playing sports, and a lot of people have injuries, so it's not something that's different. But what came from that is something called pulmonary embolism, where I had 2 blood clots in my lungs and I didn't know.
Oh.
And I was going around, I was on one of those strollers, and I used to make light of it and say, now I have a new vehicle, and I'd have one knee on, I'd be in a cast, and I would stroll around everywhere, whether it was radio or stadiums or coming to different shows and doing different things. And then one day I woke up and I thought, at night I was thinking, I'm struggling breathing, and I live in Sharjah and the hospital's in Dubai. And I was thinking, if I'm still not okay tomorrow, I'll just go. And I saw my mom before I left the house, and she's like, where are you going? I said, I'm just going to go to the hospital. I'll be back in a few hours. She said, can I come? I said, no, I'll be back. The driver, because I wasn't allowed to drive, I said, the driver will bring me back. I'll be fine. Little do I know, I had an attack in the hospital within 2 hours. And they discovered that I had this pulmonary embolism, which meant that it was very challenging, because something we fear is being out of control.
Yeah. And life is so fragile.
Exactly. So once I wasn't able to control what was happening, I went from messaging my friends to being in ICU for 24 hours. And the next time I could hear again, it changed my perspective on a lot of things. So the first time I thought I had an accident, and I survived the car accident. And if you saw the car, it was a write-off, complete, totaled. To the second time, where I'm not necessarily physically harmed, but internally I am. And I had no idea that I had the blood clots. And from the surgery, who would have thought that the blood clots will go from the legs all the way to the lungs? And I don't smoke and I don't drink. So it wouldn't be something that would have triggered it. Yeah, exactly. So I think every single time we face something, I kind of say, well, what is it trying to tell me? What is the universe trying to tell me here? And that's where, for example, as we mentioned earlier, I connected with my dad despite him resisting me for so many years and saying, look, I don't have anything for you. And I kind of turned around and said, I just want to come and see you. And I think at that point, sure, was the answer. And then nothing after that. So now I have to go again. So what are you doing on Friday? So what are you doing on Saturday?
Again.
Yeah. And he lives in Abu Dhabi. What are you doing on Friday? What are you doing on Saturday? Well, I'm working. What are you doing at 2 p.m. on Friday the 13th, the 26th, the next month? Okay, you can come. Okay, can you send me your address? Because I don't know. I don't know where you live. Okay. He doesn't know I live in Sharjah. I haven't seen him for what, 11 years?
11 years.
So at that stage, it's a long time. And then eventually going there and just seeing him, I just wanted to hug him.
Sometimes it's just that we want to do.
Yeah. And that for me was my lesson from, had I not ruptured my Achilles, had I not had the pulmonary embolism, it wouldn't make me think, okay, life is so short and time is such a blessed currency that I need to make this work. If I don't, no one will for me. And that's
that
how
was
it came
a
about.
reset.
Yeah.
And that was a reset. It makes me think of the title of your book. There are 5 dominoes in the book, but I think we have the right to transform every moment into a reset. Thousands, millions of resets if we want. And that's the power of hope and the power of making decisions and the power of the now. Like not wait forever to say, I want to reset. I deserve better. I want better. I want to let go of the grudge towards my dad. I don't want to carry this. It's too heavy. So I would say the book deep down is an invitation for reset, for healing. And you speak about the 5 dominoes. And I think it's interesting for people who have not read the book to speak very briefly about the 5 elements of it. Would you like to at least brief about what are the 5 dominoes?
Sure. Yeah. So each domino is a standing pillar. And you could be good at all 4, but one of them can affect the chain reaction. So you have, in no order particular, you have your physical, you have your mental, you have your fuel, which is your nutrition, you have your recovery, and you have your environment. But I'm actually going to ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Although I've not had anybody ask me a question, but go ahead.
Great. So I like to be the first. Which one of the dominoes could you relate to mostly and why?
Setting up the environment. Because
Why?
I think based on my research as well around disease and health and based on what I see with clients, it's easier to self-reflect and find what's wrong with you because we are made in a way to sometimes be very harsh on ourselves rather than saying that the environment I'm living in is not suiting me. And the reality is whatever can cause you unhappiness, whatever can cause you disease, whatever can contribute, let's not say cause as a major cause, but is contributing to you being unhappy, unhealthy, etc., cannot lead to your recovery, cannot lead to your happiness. So many times we're focused on the food, we're focused on recovery, we're focused on lots of things, but the environment is not right and no plant can survive in the wrong environment. So this is why I would say, probably I expected in the book to see the nutrition, to see the exercise part, the recovery part, but that domino itself of the environment was a nice surprise for me because I think people need more and more to take a break and a pause and look around them and see. And what we mean by environment is definitely not the place or the country. It's about people around you, the energy, people who believe you, people who believe in you, people who kind of like destroy you gradually by continuously criticizing you and making you feel bad about yourself. So environment is much more than just the ecosystem. It's very different. So why did you put that domino why did you choose it as part of the 5 basic dominoes? And do you believe in its power?
The whole reset model is there for people like yourself. Without people like yourself, it doesn't come to life. How many times have we read books? And even if you've met the author, if you haven't met the author and you love the book, but we don't finish it. We don't finish it because it's almost like that you're holding hands with the author and they're kind of guiding you through a story and through their personal versus the academic, like you said earlier, versus the mistakes, versus the life lessons, all the things that we don't get taught. The author kind of takes you through it. And I had so many books at home that I haven't finished. And so when I was thinking about the pillars, I was thinking about what have I seen through not just my own personal, because that could differ from person to person, but what have I seen as a common theme for people that normally experience these things, but not necessarily talk about them or share them. And then I realized I used to travel just to go train abroad, just to reset my environment. And the reason why I did that is because the responsibilities that I had in any space that I had, I didn't have full control over. So
and how much the culture encourages us to think that our only way to reset and to take a break should be through a trip or a travel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Versus this is not healthy.
Correct. And you said it perfectly. You said like, it's not travel. It's not going outside. It is your space. It's just you carry your space wherever you go. So you're responsible for your environment. So that's why I didn't want to say change. That's why I use the word reset, because people fear change. Sometimes they like their routine. Sometimes they like the way things are going, and maybe they fear taking that step or the job or their relationship or something where they think to themselves, I don't want to risk what I have for something I don't know will happen. But you said it perfectly in the sense that it is where you go. And by the way, I'll say this on camera as well. The reason why she is an ideal reset person is because not only does she teach it or educate people about it, she lives it. And for me, we've just met today, but for me, that's what's special about her as a host, but also as a person.
Thank you. I'm already a shy person. You're exposing me. But then I'll say, okay, maybe it's a chance to reset. But ultimately, when you speak about all these things together, I do speak about it as a health coach, and I call it vital coherence between mind, body, the environment, the meaning, your life purpose. And this is where healing kind of is set and is accelerated. And I call it emotional rehabilitation, because when you have a disease, you need to rehabilitate your environment and yourself and your own programming to be able to maintain the healing, even if it is a healing from a disease, from hypertension. You take your medications and then it's done. But ultimately, you didn't get it by chance. Your DNA was activated, and then you had some pre-genetic disposition. And that means you were not living the best way for your whole system, for your vital force to keep preserving a certain norm. So that means we are invited to reflect and question about, everything, including the nutrition. And this is why today all the research about how we store trauma in the body, in the hips, that's why we do somatics. That's why it's not enough. I like the Dominos approach, because it shows that when I speak about healing, I tell my clients the same thing. You can have your doctor, your Ayurvedic doctor, and you can have your holistic physiotherapist, and you can have somebody who's helping you on the mental side. It's the combination that helps you come back home. And this is why reset is a nice word for it, because I think we all have experienced, even if it is in the womb, a sense of safety, a sense of self-satisfaction, a sense of somewhere. We need to find it. It's not about just experimenting to find it outside. It's about finding it within. So this is why, again, when you speak about food, and I want to go there because I had it in mind as something I want to speak about. When you spoke about your struggles with weight and how forming habits can become your sabotaging elements for longevity. And I think longevity has been the trend today. And I think many people who are even on all these injections for losing weight, etc., and they come depressed because their connection to food is lost. They can't eat anymore, and then they are depressed, and they have to find an alternative. So when you write it in the book with lots of transparency, and I know how many kids do struggle as well with their weight, and they try their best, and we try our best. So I would say, what message would you tell that child that struggled with weight and with emotional eating, if you had to go back and meet that teenager, let's say, who was struggling with that? Because I know that it's becoming a big thing in our society, and the bullying that happens around it as well.
Yeah, I would say improve the relationship you have with yourself, with nutrition, with fueling. And a lot of people, and I was one of them, would tend to resort to that as emotional. And that would be like a way to, it's almost like it becomes a hobby where you start to eat as a hobby. And when you're bored, when you're watching something, when you're with family, when you're with friends, when you're going to meet someone, the first thing that comes is a plate. So I think, like, for me personally, it was building that relationship, which I struggled with most of my life, if I'm being very honest with that. And it's because normally as a male in our culture, it was like, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. Like, man up, get up, go get it, go do it. You fell down, stand up. And it was very much embedded in our upbringing. So for me, that was that. I would go back and say that. And I would go back and say, find something that works for you. Don't feel like you have to follow all the time. Because once you find that sweet spot in anything, it could be anything really. Mine just happened to be the sport of football, or even later on boxing, or whatever it was. Find what works for you and stick at it, and don't be afraid to fail, because they all go hand in hand. Everything affects the chain reaction that we learn about. We just discover them along the way. We discover the importance of recovery when we start to get a little bit more experienced, and then we realize that we don't recover as quick as we used to, and we can't get away with eating such and such before training at this time, because it all affects the sleep. If you eat late, then you probably affect your sleep, which will affect the way you wake up the next day. So then that whole starts to come in.
And the cortisol up next morning because of lack of sleep.
Exactly.
It's such a cycle. And this is why sometimes we don't realize that a nervous system that is dysregulated leads to physical issues. Because even when we speak about ice bath, do you know that on a day where I've not slept one night before properly, I can't sustain in the ice for more than a minute, versus when I'm rested and wherever, I can sit in the ice for 4 minutes. So that tells that even our potential and our limitations can vary according to sleep, according to food, according to how we show up to the world.
Yeah.
If you had to write again this book today, 2026, what would you change in it?
I wouldn't change much about the framework, because I think that will always apply. And the biggest compliment I get is not when people say they've reread the whole book, is when they say they went back to one domino that they need to work on. And that for me, and sometimes what I've got feedback-wise is, can you please write something on this domino in more depth, because we want more. And my answer to that is, I'm flattered that they want more. And then I also say the hardest thing was to simplify it. So if I start adding now, I'm removing the lightness of the book in a heavy topic, in whichever one they relate to more. And the other thing is, you mentioned ice bath there, which was super interesting. When I met Benoit, who brought us together, the first thing he said to me, he didn't know me, he didn't know my background, he didn't know anything. I got in the ice, and it was the first time I got in the ice, and he said to me, "Why are you fighting the ice?" And then
that's powerful.
And that was powerful. And I'm in the ice, so I can't start talking to him about everything. But I was in the ice, and he said, "It's because you're mentally strong, you're staying in there, but you're not breathing." And then that goes back to the things that people don't teach us, that we learn. So unless you've gone to a specialist like Benoit or like yourself, who can really teach you, we don't get the privilege of meeting people like you every day.
I mean, it is a privilege to, again, meet people like you as well. I mean, I wonder, you went into sports. You could have been a life coach as well or a therapist. What brought you to that? And maybe directly or consciously or subconsciously, but this book is about integrative health, is about not considering health as in, not considering health and human being as a dissected thing, because ultimately this is what we're facing nowadays. And with integrative health, we want to bring the approach to pathology, to disease, to normality, to health as in a whole. We can't separate. So that's what you've done with your Dominos approach. And I love that about the book. But you've done it from a sports performance coach perspective. So what brought you to that department? Like even now what you do on radio shows, etc., has a lot to do with sports and football. So from where is this passion?
I managed to use sport as a tool we spoke about the term escapism. All the things I was escaping from were things I was scared to address. But through sport, you learn to address these things through performance, losses, competitions, facing people who are more technical, faster, stronger. And that for me was the lessons I was learning. Even though I thought I was escaping, actually, I was facing it in the sports. And only when I faced it could I then help relate and lift others around me, my team. I never understood, and I always say this, I never understood why I was always captain of my teams.
Oh.
Genuinely. Because technically I wasn't the best. But as I grew older, I realized what those coaches could see at a time where maybe I couldn't identify it. And that wasn't technicalities. That was hard work. That was resistance. That was trusting the process. There was all these things that I learned through sport. And because I was that overweight kid, I can empathize with people who face similar challenges. Because I wasn't always the best, I could relate to those people. Because I reached a certain level where I could be proud of, I also know how it feels to be on top and how short it is to be on top, time-wise. And then afterwards, that kind of helped me coach. Yeah, that kind of helped me coach in a way where there's tough love in sport. But there's a balance where that humanity and that humility and the accountability and the responsibility that we all face, at some point in our life, we then turn to sports. And that's why I went through that. And when you were talking earlier about health and all the things, the reason why I was smiling is because I didn't study it like you. I was so intrigued by it that I had to read and I had to research and I had to find people like yourself that I could learn from. Because at that time, I was sort of, lost. As a teenager, I was thinking, I need to lose weight. I'm in an all-boys school as well. So there's no distractions from the opposite sex either. So that means you've only got the boys to impress. And that's through sport. And those are the things that I think.
And that's how you found.
And that's how I found the love for saying, okay, now no one's watching. Now you've got to step up to the plate and do your best and see where it takes you.
And this is why Reset is also a book that invites people to understand that one size does not fit all. And I think whether you speak of exercise or food or whatever it is, you bring the person back to how they feel. And that's how, in fact, at the end of the book, you reach a point of saying when there are some question and answers. And when you're asked, when should I stop and when is it enough? And you said it's about how you feel. Yeah. So on that, I would say, what is the last message you want to give to anyone who feels that they need a push to start or reset, and they are mostly focused on criteria given by others, by social media, by what is trendy, etc. So what is the easiest way to reset?
I think that the most efficient way is, I had the privilege of interviewing the brain coach, Jim Quick, and I'm fascinated because he's the brain coach. So I asked him, give me some advice on what I can still do now. And he said, Omar, it comes down to this. We all know what to do, but we don't always do what we know. And I thought, oh, that's so good. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, when I took that in and I started then implementing it and all the things through the practice of reset, I realized that GAS, something you need to practice in order to find what works for you, is gratitude, appreciation, and self-reflection.
Beautiful.
And with those three, as long as you're honest with yourself and you're not worried about what everyone else is doing or how they did it, how they reached the top, you're gonna be okay. And I think I needed someone to kind of tell me that 19 years ago or 20 years ago before the book was out there.
We always need someone to tell us, and I think we're always sent the right people at the right time, including this beautiful conversation today that brought gratitude again to my journey, to my day, etc. So I'm really happy that you came. And I'm really happy that not only that you've come for the podcast, but because you've allowed us to understand a bit more of the story behind the story. And I think that this was an honor for me.
Oh, the honor was all mine. Honestly, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming, Omar. What stays with me after this conversation is a simple reminder. Growth is rarely about becoming someone else. It's about returning to ourselves, returning to what matters, returning to our values, returning to our humanity, returning home. And perhaps that's what resonated with me most while reading Reset and listening to your story today, Omar. Whether your reset begins with nutrition, movement, recovery, your environment, or your relationships, may it bring you closer to yourself and closer to home. If today's conversation sparked your interest, your curiosity, and you'd like to explore the 5 Dominos framework, Omar's practical strategies and his advice in greater depth, we'd love to invite you to join us at Philo Life Wellbeing Education Center in Dubai on Friday, the 12th of June, for a special Philo talk and interactive and Q&As with Omar. And before we leave, what part of Omar's story resonated with you the most? Can you share with me that in the comments? Because I would love to know more about what you think about it. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, subscribe, and follow Let's Get Real to Heal on YouTube and Instagram. You'll find Omar's details, the Philotalk information, and where to purchase Reset in the description below. Until next time, may your reset bring you closer to yourself and closer to home. Let's get real to heal.